we'll go to you next then.
Okay.
Your take on current affairs and your...
Well, my take on current affairs is you know, I use the internet very sensibly, Michael. You'll be glad to hear.
As a 40-year-old trucker, you think.
No, when I was thinking about this, I had to look at what are we doing at the moment. And I was surprised at the amount of current affairs programs that we actually have going out. I mean, just looking from this program schedule there, you have Northside Today, you have the Senior Citizens Programme, you have Between the Lines, you have Armagh and Wicca, you have Northside Tonight, and that's just looking at Monday's schedule. So I think what Michael was saying as well, that I suppose current affairs reflects what's happening in a community, and I think part of our job, and again it's spelled out in our mission statement, is to be an outlet for those underrepresented, to foster social justice and to promote civil society. You know, to give a voice to those who don't often get a voice, and to put discordant voices out there as well. I think it's important that when we are doing programmes that we have a respect for our guests and our listeners, as Michael was saying about getting some information. If you have 3 panelists in, I'll say, Between the Lines, that you actually look up at the subjects that they're going to bring up, because you're representing the listener in a lot of cases. And in some cases, in the current situation, for instance, it's very hard to get government parties to take part in discussions. So sometimes, as a presenter, you have to play devil's advocate to make sure that the point of view that they're enunciating their policies is actually put to those who would seek to take over from them. But there is balance as well. You do get, everybody here has their own view of politics. I know more than anybody else. But I think we have a duty of care to those who are listening to us, to make sure that we give that the people who come in, and especially from the political class, a lot of whom I share Mike's views. But I think it's important that these people be questioned, not barracked, not hounded, but be asked to explain. Because a lot of stuff that's happening on the countrywide basis, it's affecting people in the area that we cover. We saw it earlier on that really excellent Vox Pop that was done, because that was showing what the effects of the recession are having here, and how they affect people who would tune into the senior citizens programs, because I've listened to it, and to a lot of people we're a social outlet. A lot of people who wouldn't maybe go to citizens' advice, they get some information for us, or they're pointed in a direction of others who can help them. For instance, recently under the European, we did a program on poverty. We did 2 programs on poverty, and we got people from the different organisations in, and we spoke to people in the area as well. Just to get, and an awful lot, we did get a big response to those programs. What people were saying was, I didn't know this, or I didn't know that, or they didn't know where they could get help, or they didn't know that organisations existed. It was brought up earlier on when we were talking about that some people in Raheny didn't know we were here. Right? An awful lot of people who listen to us get information from us as a radio station throughout our output in current affairs that actually helps them to access stuff that they're entitled to. We are an alternative to the mainstream media. We certainly aim to be that, and in our current affairs we try to do the same. So the programme that we would put out on current affairs would not be the boo stuff normally that you'd get if you listen to RTE and to News Talk, which kind of take current affairs as a kind of a sport. Fianna Fáil 1, Fine Gael 0. Biffo look better than Enda, but not as good as Eamon. And that's what I was turning people off. I mean, I find myself a lot more turning off radio programs and the news. There's an awful lot of people are just absolutely fed up. But what we're trying to do is to get behind the news. We see we're very involved in community here. We see, and we try to mirror it and give a voice to people whose grants have been cut by Hubble, people who have, in 10 years, it took them to build up something to do with drugs in the inner city, and it's gone like that. And that's to save €100,000. We try to highlight things like that, so that, and these things again will take another 5 or 10 years to build up again. So it's important that we, in our current affairs, actually tackle the things which affect people on the ground. And because we come from the communities, of the area here, we come across it. I mean, at the moment, in 3 weeks' time, I'll be back on the dole. I have a part-time job at the moment, and that's the reality for an awful lot of people probably in the room here, and a lot of people in the community who are listening to it. So more people are listening to us and want to know what their entitlements are and what they can do for themselves. We see in the training course that we're running here, we're getting very diverse, from the 17 or 18-year-olds to 50 and 60-year-olds, the women's group, the Sphere 17 up in Darndale. So we are actually having an effect. And it is current affairs. Everything we do and everything we do as a community and the information we put through, that's current affairs, because it affects people in the area now, in their lives. So I think one of the most important things for me is that is balance. And the balance doesn't mean if you're a drug addict and you have to get an anti-drugs activist. What balance is that the person who is making the point, right? If they're making a point that you consider outlandish, that you, as the voice of the representing the listeners, that you challenge that or ask people to explain or elaborate on it. Because an awful lot of things I hear on the radio every day, a lot of things go unchallenged. It's just somebody reads his party piece, then he's asked a hard question, then he goes into the thing that was prepared for him by head office, and nothing really don't get into any kind of discussion or debate, or you don't challenge the listener to say, didn't think of that, why didn't you ask him this? And then they'll ring in, why don't you ask him that? So it's important that we're a conduit for the community. I'll leave it at that. We can debate more over this. Thank you.